Now we are with Kuzi, who is reflecting after what happened with Alisa, wondering what he was thinking, as he felt embarrassed by the events that occurred. He also remembers that she said she liked him, which could mean she was genuinely flirting in Russian and not just playing to see if he understood or not. He believes that today's events came from the heart, but he quickly tells himself that this cannot be true. So he tries to convince himself that she was just carried away by the situation just like he was, and that right now she must have regained her senses and is probably crying nonstop. That's when he recalls a family argument where his mother was complaining to his father about not coming home lately because of work. Feeling uncomfortable with that, he thinks love is a fickle and unreliable emotion, and he's a fool for worrying about it, not considering himself important enough to support Alisa, being aware that he ran away from home and burdened Yuki with the family name. When he arrives at his apartment, he is surprised to see her shoes, as she had said she had things to do. Then he thinks that if today was orchestrated to get him to join the student council, it's clear that Yuki is involved. Suddenly, he opens the bathroom door and finds his sister practically naked, except for a towel. Yuki's first reaction is to scream in embarrassment, calling him a pervert in an exaggerated manner. Kuz, on the other hand, remains calm and accuses her of having planned this all along, and she doesn't hesitate to admit the truth. But before he leaves, Yuki approaches to stop him and asks if he's not curious about why she did this. She also mentions that a few minutes ago, she realized something significant. They have been living together for years, but they've never had the walking in while she's changing event. Every brother walks in while his sister is changing at least once, but Kuzi yells that maybe that happens in 2D, wanting her to stop her inner otaku. Yuki is offended that he is the one telling her this, and then she poses towards the corner to give him a little detail. Kuz asks what she's looking at, to which she responds that she's looking at a camera he can't see. Then she explains that this is her way of making up for what she did today. But seeing him so uninterested in her body, she tells him that he thinks he's very important and serious, but she knows he looked at her from head to toe. In a more serious tone, Kuz agrees to tell her a big secret, that blatantly showing skin isn't exciting at all, as the key is to see things out of the corner of your eye. This hits Yuki hard, who assumes she didn't consider that detail. Again, he tries to leave, but his sister stops him to clarify that she's not fooling anyone, as it's true that he looked at her entire body. Having no other option, he admits that he only looked up to her chest, causing her to shout that he's a chest monster, though he calls her an exhibitionist. Once Yuki gets dressed, she goes to his room, asking if the president and Masha have convinced him to join the council. Kuz confirms this, but wanting to give all the details, he also informs her that he has decided to support Alisa for the council presidency. After a few seconds of silence, Yuki bursts out yelling that Alisa played her cards and stole her brother. She calls him a chest monster, asking if her C-cup breasts aren't enough for him or if he was dazzled by Alisa's E-cup breasts, although those measurements are not confirmed. Kuz, looking disturbed, asks her to stop talking about cup sizes, as it's too graphic. His sister tells him he needs to open his eyes, and that he should know that a small breast in hand is worth more than 100 in the bush, inviting him to come over and touch her. Seeing him refuse, she continues trying to seduce him, saying that he'll be the first to fondle his sister's breasts, though she then mentions it's a joke as he already did in elementary school. But when she hears him say he doesn't remember, she tells him that it was when he was in second grade. They ran into each other while he was chasing her, and he lunged at her thighs and grabbed one of her breasts. Kuz, feeling embarrassed, declares that he would remember such a miracle, wanting her to stop making up typical situations. In the end, she gets upset and asks him to pamper her, to which he agrees and starts combing her hair. Now more relaxed, Yuki mentions the fact that he will be running with Alisa, enjoying a sibling rivalry. Kuz apologizes for that, making it clear that he doesn't dislike her or anything like that, though she reminds him that she already knows, and it's because he loves her a lot. He admits she's right, making her laugh at seeing him blushing. After making a few more jokes, Yuki says goodbye and leaves the room, but when alone, she looks surprised that her brother has found someone capable of motivating him. She feels it's a shame it wasn't her, but she doesn't care because she won't lose anyway. The next day, Kuz wakes up and finds it strange that his sister hasn't tried to wake him up as usual, so he thinks the news did affect her. But when he gets out of bed, a hand grabs his ankle, scaring him quite a bit. Yuki peeks out from under his bed to show herself, proving that she's not depressed or anything like that, though after a few seconds, she falls silent, asking him to help her out since she's stuck. What Kuz does is approach and smother her with his sheets, to which she complains that they smell like a man and that she's going to faint. In the classroom, Alisa stays focused on watching Kuz's arrival, not understanding why she's so nervous about him, as he's likely to arrive half asleep as usual. At that moment, Kuz arrives to greet her, and to her surprise, he looks quite dazzling. Looking closely, she thinks he's not the same as always, and that he seems more spectacular, though that's just from her perspective. Still, she tries to downplay it, assuming that at any moment he'll fall asleep. But when class starts, she sees him focused, which leaves her more confused, beginning to think that he might actually change his behavior for her. Later, in the gym, Kuz is suddenly hit on the head by a ball, so he steps out of the gym to take a break. Alisa comes out to ask if he's okay, but despite him saying that nothing's wrong, she gets closer to check his temperature with hers, which makes him a bit nervous. In that moment, the first thing Kuzi sees is her large bust. He then wonders if it's true that she's an E-cup, though he remembers she said needs confirmation, so they might be even bigger. After that, Alisa starts fixing her hair, making her beauty even more striking in his eyes, and it provokes him to the point where he wonders if she's doing it on purpose. So he looks away, but inevitably his gaze returns to her, demonstrating to his sister that looking out of the corner of the eye is best. A few minutes later, they go to get some water, and Kuzi sees another incredible demonstration of how attractive Alisa looks there, getting caught up in the sight. But the next thing she sees is Kuzi dunking his entire head in the water, and he explains that he wanted to cool his head off, literally. At that moment, Masha arrives to offer him her towel, but seeing that he refuses her help, she wraps him up in it and starts drying him off. As another stroke of good luck, Kuz now has a new view of another bust, which leaves him in shock, as he has never seen something like this in this way. They start chatting about things, but as they get along, Alisa takes him away to say goodbye to Masha, which doesn't make her happy, but she still shows her kindness towards him. As they walk together, Kuz assumes that she will insult him as usual. Instead, Alisa turns around and asks if he's okay, showing genuine concern for the earlier accident. Kuz responds that he's fine and doesn't have any bumps, but she still reaches out to him to confirm. He steps back to reassure her that nothing's wrong, starting to get nervous as he doesn't understand what's going on, wanting to know why she's being so nice to him. With some difficulty, he asks if she's being unusually kind to him today. Alisa replies that she's doing it because he's been down all day, so she's just worried that something might be wrong. Nothing more. Understanding her intentions better, he admits that he's still a bit affected by disappointing Yuki. He clarifies that nothing's wrong, though he's interrupted by the rumbling of his stomach, explaining that he left without breakfast this morning. Suddenly, she starts to get upset, thinking that for a change, he was paying attention in class, but he was just too hungry to fall asleep. Kuz quickly clarifies that it's because he slept well last night, but this still annoys her, as she had a hard time sleeping after what they went through the night before. Meanwhile, this clown ignored the whole matter and slept without any problems, giving him an intimidating look as she couldn't contain her anger. This scares Kuz, who changes the subject and asks if she knows what the Lord says, which is, if someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. In response, Alisa says she's just looking at an idiot and incompetent with contempt, leaving the place indignant as she worried about him for nothing. Kuz, on the other hand, smiles because she's still the same Alisa. After class, he asks her if they can go to the student council office together. Alisa says nothing, simply getting up and heading there, still upset, making it clear to him that he had gone too far before. As they approach the office, they see a group of students apologizing at the entrance, and as they leave, Kuz identifies them as the members of the soccer and baseball teams. After that, he approaches the door to try to enter, but is intimidated by a girl who looks very dangerous. Shortly after, she apologizes for acting that way, thinking the baseball and soccer players had returned for something else. This girl being Chisaki Sarashina, the vice president and Kanzaki's partner. It turns out she wanted to resolve the disputes of both teams, being used to doing so with a firm hand, or rather, with her bamboo sword. Kuz had already heard about her reputation, but now he confirms how fearsome she can be. Kanzaki asks her to calm down, as Chisaki didn't use violence, only threatened to become violent to make them behave. This makes her complain about putting it that way, while Kuz lets out some rather forced laughs. Despite that, he finds them very adorable, though that image is erased from his mind when she goes from giving him pats to good hard slaps on his shoulder. Shortly after, Masha arrives, and at that moment, Chisaki apologizes to Kanzaki for being too harsh. He reminds her that he goes to the gym and is in perfect condition, so she can hit him as much as she wants, and suddenly, a romantic moment between them ensues. Kuz wonders what was cute about that, and Alisa pulls him by the elbow to whisper not to say that. This makes him smile defiantly, so he tells her that the guys call Chisaki boss, wondering if they wear a sash, because if so, the guys could call her Sash Boss. His joke is enough to make Alisa start laughing, and Masha praises the good relationship they have. That's when Yuki finally arrives, so Kanzaki decides to start the council meeting, having all the members gathered, asking Kuzi to introduce himself first. He stands up and announces himself as Masachika Kuzi, who will handle the council's general affairs. And next year, Alisa and he will run for the elections, hoping to get along well with everyone. And that's all. If you liked it, please subscribe to support the channel. Comment the word glimpse to show that you stayed until the end, as not many people usually do.